So you want to fire it up?
Yeah, rock and roll.
Sounds good. Broadcasting live from inside the power band. This is The Blah. In this episode, everybody dies.
Everybody kevs.
I'm your host, Mulverine, along with my super awesome friends, Chad.
What up?
And Ben.
Greetings.
Salutations.
In the future, there will be robots.
Because we'll all be dead.
So, exactly. Welcome to the podcast, folks. This week, despite the global pandemic, we're going to be talking about the Chronicles of Riddick, the early 2000s titular classic. I feel like I say that for every single movie we do, but
every episode.
Every single episode, but
every movie is a titular classic.
That's right, Ben.
What does titular mean? I don't even know what titular means.
I forgot.
Jimmy,
where are you?
I think it means something about tits.
Something about boobs, hey.
Holding or constituting a purely formal position or title without any real authority. The Queen is the titular head of the Church of England.
Yeah, that sounds right, but the way I say it doesn't sound right.
Well, Queen, yeah, so tits.
So the titular classic means that it's a classic, but it's not really a classic?
I guess.
Broadcasting, okay.
I guess we'll stop doing that.
What a fail on my part, yeah. All right, so we're going to stop saying that, so let me do that over.
Then why do people say that all the time, though? I mean, They do say it all the time. It's very common.
Yeah.
Especially when referring to movies.
Yes, they do.
Let's see, maybe there's more.
The classic, not classic. But I still like
any of the parish churches. Oh, here it is. Denoting any of the parish churches in Rome to which cardinals are formally appointed. That's why.
Oh, there you go, right there.
There it is.
That's it.
I still like Ben's. I like Ben's better,
I told you, it's about boobs.
Exactly.
There you go. Our desire to grow our female listenership has failed.
Yeah, miserably.
Sorry, ladies.
Sorry, folks. So this week on the podcast, we'll be talking about the classic, not classic, early 2000s film, The Chronicles of Riddick, starring Vin Diesel.
The D's.
I have numerous notes. This is
700 pages of notes.
No, I don't. Not 700. Only 699. So we have
Zing.
This is a really interesting movie to talk about. So I'm really excited to talk about this.
Yeah, you guys are frothing about this one.
I am frothy and my brain is mossy.
Whoa, I don't even know what that means.
Kev, are you turning into a necromonger? Is that what mossy brain means?
Exactly.
Are you a holy half-dead?
I am. And that's what, so like 10 times in this episode, you have to say to me, Ben, Kev, are you with me? Are you with me, Mulvey? It's hard to get down low enough.
I can't do
the
Diesel. He's got that low croak that I have a low voice, but it's a different kind of low.
It is. Yours is like very smooth and resonant. What the hell are we doing here?
I have no idea.
So Mulvey is a necromonger, but he's still with us, so.
Yep.
Okay, so first off, who watched what? I watched the unrated director's cut because that's what I own. What did you guys watch? The original theatrical or the unrated?
I started with the theatrical and then realized there was an unrated and about halfway through swapped.
Yes, I believe I watched the unrated director's cut or whatever it is.
The slightly longer one.
The slightly longer one, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
The one with the Fury in hand bit.
Yeah. When I watched it, when I swapped over to the unrated, and there was a couple scenes that came up, and I was like, oh yeah, no, I've seen this before. So I was concerned that I hadn't seen the director's cut before, but it turns out that I had, so that's what I watched, and that's, I think I prefer that one to the theatrical cut, even though it's not massively different.
It's not massively different, and this is a good place to start off, but it does have a couple of key story points that I think really flesh it out that much more. And one of them is the Fury and cryo dream. You know, when she talks about, you were holding in the anger of an entire race of people that were wronged, essentially, and places her hand on his chest. Like that made a lot of things make more sense in the film. Not a lot of things maybe, but I just thought it added to it.
It made there was more stakes as a result, I think, maybe.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah. I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but
Do it.
I couldn't remember if in the original theatrical cut, Linus Roach finds him passed out, Linus Roach, the purifier.
Yep.
Finds him passed out and drags him back into the hangar, and then they, like, you know, he basically tells Riddick that he's done being a necromonger, and, you know, he like opens his shirt and he's got the Furian anger hand thing too. Like, did that happen in the theatrical cut?
No.
Yeah, no, it kind of did. I had the same exact thought, and it was right around the time that I transitioned to the other movie, so I had kind of both of them opened. Because on Netflix it's the theatrical cut.
Okay.
At least in Australia. And yeah, so he pulls him into the hangar and says most of the lines, doesn't open his shirt, but then says he's a Furian. So I thought that was a little interesting, but kind of strange that they kind of cut the Furian hand part, but kept the fact that he admits that he's a Furian in it. And I suppose it makes sense in the sense that he walks out of the hangar afterwards. But
Okay, so the first copy I owned of this was a great triple feature of Chronicles of Riddick, Dark Fury, and Pitch Black.
okay.
Like a complete idiot, I loaned it to somebody and never saw it again. And I was mostly pissed at that because I lost my copy of Dark Fury.
Yeah, I downloaded a copy of it.
Yeah, it's really good, man, and it's Peter Chung, and I mean, you know, come on. So I watched the theatrical release of this about a zillion times. And then when I re-upped and bought it again, I bought the unrated director's cut. And that scene in particular, you know, the hand scene is missing, but he does drag him into the hangar and all of that stuff. And I liked the theatrical version of it because it showed that, you know, he was basically saying, you know, the same bit where he goes, you know, I'm supposed to deliver a message to you if Vaako failed to kill you. And then he kind of throws in at the end, you know, the Furian in me. And it's nice and subtle without the extra footage in there. And it kind of lets him know in a cool way that he's not the only one. And I don't know, I thought it worked really well. Like I always enjoyed it like that. And then when I saw the director's cut and they added in the hand and all that, it just fleshed it out even more. And I definitely dug it. So I definitely dig both. And I think both work beautifully. It's like in the theatrical release, it kind of ends up being a little more of like a kind of a secret reveal, you know, like, oh, by the way, I'm on your side. I'm a Furian too.
He did the Furian hand gang sign with his hands, and Vin Diesel was
Exactly.
like, "Whoa,
Whoa, whoa,
whoa."
whoa, whoa! You Furian too?
Did you have a preference, Benny, of the theatrical versus the director's cut of that one?
Not necessarily. You know, like we've all said, you know, previously, the director's cut isn't necessarily anything epic. It's just a little bit of extra stuff, and it's good because it's not game breaking stuff. You know, it's not like
No, definitely not.
It's not a Lucas re-edit where,
Oh, God.
you know, there's a bunch of unnecessary exposition that just, you know, is infuriating to watch.
Pun not intended.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess the director's cut is the unrated version is, you know, maybe slightly more interesting. Slightly.
Yeah.
Ben, can I ask you a question? Did you just very slyly make a reference to a certain film that we do not mention without actually mentioning it to avoid a certain podcast death?
No comment.
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Very well, then. Let's move on.
If you don't remember what I said, then I didn't die.
There you go.
It didn't happen, Kev. Well, I will say this. There's definitely a couple of dialogue lines that were sort of trimmed or shifted a little bit between the two versions of the film. And this is like a really dumb little nitpick, but it's not a nitpick. It's just that in the theatrical version, when they get to the hangar right before they play Who's the Better Killer, he's like surveying the landscape, and he says in the theatrical, he goes, I'm gonna try to diesel this. It's not gonna work well. He goes, 2 captains, 1 commander, and a whole lot of necro firepower. And I always loved that line in the way he says it. And then in the unrated version, he skips the 2 captains, 1 commander, and he just says, and a whole lot of necro firepower. And I was always like, God, Why did they cut that out of there? Really, really liked that line, and it was delivered well. So anyway, that was my only sort of thing that I miss about the from the theatrical release.
But similarly, the film that should not be named has a bunch of fan edits. You should do a Wolverine edit of Riddick where you just change like the 2 5-second scenes and spend like hours and hours and hours piecing it together just to change that one line and then change the hangar scene to the theatrical and release it to the fan kingdom.
The Mulvey edit. There's
Yeah.
only one change, the most important one. Okay, so we all seem to agree that both versions are good versions.
Yeah, they're both perfectly fine. The director's has a slightly different ending, but
It does.
even that's super subtle, and we can get into it later.
I do want to make a high-level commentary first.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I think this film warrants it. At least I think this is the best sort of, not the best, but it's really worth talking about. And what I'm going to start off with is that, this film holds a 29% on Rotten Tomatoes. It was largely panned. It has undoubtedly become a cult classic.
No doubt.
It is, in my opinion. I've seen a zillion movies. I know I'm not hallucinating. I don't have delusions of grandeur, mostly. This is a really good film. And I can list, and we will, about 1,000 reasons why it's a really good film. So the really interesting thing to me is why this movie was panned. Because, my God, man, the world building alone in this movie is so good and so rich and so original. The attention to detail, the sets, the entire look of the necromongers, the entire look of everything, the names of the planets. I mean, I can go on and on and on. The cast is fantastic, man. Everybody brought A game to this movie. And why this movie was panned or labeled as like a summer popcorn explosion movie is just, it escapes me. I cannot figure it out. I paused a second ago to open up Amazon because I wanted to look at some of the reviews. And when you go to the top of the review section, it's like 85 to 90% 5-star reviews. Like, so I don't know. I don't get that. What do you guys think?
So the critics panned it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, critics, and I mean some fans too, but yeah, critics mostly. I mean,
I think the audience rating's not that far off in Rotten Tomatoes or whatever. I think the audience reviews are in like the low 5s or something, isn't it?
it may not be.
Let me see. 29 tomato score, 65 audience. So not a horrible audience score, but certainly not a great one.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and make a guess that because it's a Vin Diesel movie and people just associate Vin Diesel with, Fast and Furious and, which I also like those movies, but they definitely are sort of like, popcorn, straight up, fluffy action flick kind of things. I don't know. I think maybe if I hadn't seen it with friends the first time, I might get a sense of like, this is a little over the top. This is a little, some of the tough guy action dialogue is a little over the top, and just a lot of the concepts are very over the top. I don't know. Does any of that make any sense?
Definitely.
The Vin Diesel connection and just a sort of like a camp to the film, if you will.
A camp to it? Is that what you said, buddy?
I yes, yeah,
Yeah, it's got some camp factor for sure.
Yeah,
there's a bit of camp to it. I mean, just something that just jumped into mind was like it has a similar level of world building, like you mentioned, Kev. The world building is similar to proto Star Wars or The Matrix, which was somewhat contemporary. Just in terms of there being an interesting universe that it lived in, even if it didn't get a chance to flesh it out. But the campiness really reminds me a lot of the like campiness in like a Bond movie, and so it's almost like a Star Wars crossed with a Bond style shoot 'em up with like zinging one-liners and stuff, or maybe like an action movie, even like an Arnie style action movie.
yeah.
But I just don't see how that would rub so many people the wrong way. Like I kind of feel like
I think
maybe because it was right after the Matrix trilogy, people were butthurt about their favoriteest things getting ruined, boo-hoo, and they weren't willing to give something new a chance. I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it has a lot to do with perhaps when this came out and what was going on with sci-fi movies at the time and action movies at the time. There's also kind of a changing of the guard going on, guys like Vin Diesel and Dwayne Johnson. I was going to say The Rock, but I wanted to say Dwayne Johnson. Guys like that were kind of starting to take over as like the leads in action films.
That's a good point.
And I don't know if people were necessarily very warm to it at that point.
No.
But I mean, I'm not being critical of the film. I love the film. And yeah, it is a little campy, but I like that. I mean, I didn't want to use this example quite so soon, but, come on. Riddick being like, I'll kill you with my teacup.
Yeah.
And then proceeding to kill a guy with his teacup. I mean, that's over the top. I mean, it's awesome, but it is totally fucking over the top.
Yeah.
I can see why some people might be like, this is just fucking stupid, like.
Okay, all right, fair enough. But here's the thing about Riddick. He is that much of a badass.
Right. But, I could see people not being warm to Vin Diesel at the time and just not wanting to buy that, like not wanting to buy how much of a badass that he is, and therefore just sort of dismissing the movie offhand.
Yes. Right. And these people have not seen all 4 films 300,000 times like the three of us, certainly me. And I think that was what I came to in my head as I was barfing out my opening salvo, was that I think this movie just came out at the wrong time. And that is what it is mostly a victim of, because when you look at it, we've talked about, films and TV shows being a sum of their parts. Like, there's so much awesome stuff in here to love. So like, I don't really find a lot of camp in this movie. And I would say the only things, and this is with like a magnifying glass, like the scenes on Helion are definitely sets. Okay. It's obvious. And if those were a little more realistic, that would have made the movie that much better. But again, like, that's a magnifying glass nitpick, man. It's not like it makes it horrible or campy or cheesy,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I didn't mind that at all.
Exactly.
No, and to like use that as a segue into kind of my high level thoughts. I hadn't seen this movie as much as you guys obviously had. And when we spoke about Riddick in passing, a dozen episodes ago, I went back and watched the full trilogy again, and I was quite meh about it. But since then, I kind of feel like talking with you guys and poking at the algorithm and realizing just how much of a whinger I tend to be, and like how like too high expectations I can be about movies, like wanting every movie to be a masterpiece isn't overly reasonable.
Wow, dude.
Well, it's like I want every movie to be like an Interstellar, or like, something just like blows me away. And regardless of how you feel about an Interstellar, like the cerebral style movies are the stuff that I really love, and I love a bit of schlock and a bit of action just as much as the next person. But
Sure.
I definitely like, it's taken me, probably 5 or 6 viewings, I'd say I'm up to on the Riddicks now, and it's taken me that many viewings to kind of get an appreciation. So like viewing 4, I was kind of like, yeah, whatever. Viewing 5, especially after our conversations on The Expanse and stuff, I'm like, you know what, this is actually a really good movie. And
exactly.
And I'm willing to forgive, some of the visual effects that aren't amazing, and I'm willing to forgive, it's not even forgive. I'm just willing to just not care about some of the minor bumps, because as a whole, it's an awesome universe, and it's I don't know. Part of me wants to say it's a tragedy that they didn't get more of a chance to explore it because it flopped so hard, and the other part of me is kind of happy it flopped so that it can just be its own thing and not. I know that it's controversial on this show with you, Kev, but not go the way of The Matrix, of like, having the couple of movies that came out after the original take away from it, in my view. So I feel like if they made 2 or 3 more Riddicks because it was a blockbuster, like, we might have found ourselves in the similar position. But
well, yes,
but they are.
They are what, Ben?
I mean, they already made we already have Riddick, the movie Riddick, which came out after, and they're working on the screenplay for number 4 is complete, and they're planning to move forward with it. So
that's correct. And there's also a potential television show called Merc City that may be coming out as well.
Well, I kind of feel like what I'm trying to say, though, is that, like, I feel like the Chronicles of Riddick not becoming a blockbuster reset what they were able to do with the next movie, Riddick. And they kind of had tail between the legs a bit, based on some of the
no doubt
stuff that I saw. Like, they wanted to make, like, a whole big thing out of this, but it all got shelved after this bombed.
Yeah.
Oh, dude. Well, that's sort of the beauty of it as well, because while you're absolutely right, and I've heard people complain about that as well, like, why didn't they go to the Underverse, like all that stuff? It's like they didn't have the money.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to make this movie. It's like the fans wanted this movie made, Chloe wanted the movie made, and Diesel wanted the movie made. And my understanding is that Diesel he footed a lot of the cash himself, even going so far as to put up his house as collateral. I don't know if that's true or not, but it wouldn't surprise me at all. To make Riddick. I mean, Riddick 2013 it's essentially Pitch Black. I mean, it's the same idea, monsters, whatever. But I just watched Riddick last week, and I was like, I still love it. It's great. It's got so many different elements that are different from Pitch Black. It's really just the monster part of it. Like, they did the best they could with the cash they had, the resources they had. So they rewove the story. They still got Vaako in there. They made the whole necromonger thing They made the whole necromonger thing work and still leave it open to future exploration. So I think they did a really good job with what they had to work with. I mean, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, and I totally get what you're saying, Chad. You know what I mean? Like, again, this thing was wrong place, wrong time. And this whole franchise seems to be a victim of timing. But the beauty of it is that it's become a labor of love, and it has for Diesel and Chloe. And sometimes that makes a better film.
Definitely.
And the only other thing I want to say, sort of to your comment, but it's sort of a general note. Like, people have asked me for years, dude, why do you watch movies over and over so many times? It's like, once you've seen it, you've seen it. And my response is always this. How many times have you listened to Led Zeppelin 4? Oh, dude, like 100,000 times. Exactly. So what is the difference? The only difference is that there is a visual component in addition to an audio component. So there's nothing wrong with watching films and television series multiple times. To me, I treat them just like albums. Like, I've listened to every Doors album about 1 million times, ditto Zeppelin, ditto Pink Floyd, ditto like most of the music that I love. Same thing with movies, man. And then this is really what sparked me to say this, Chad, was your comment where you said, now that I'm on the 5th go round with all of these films, I'm kind of like, this is pretty good. It's like, exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to listen to stuff like, there's certain albums that I listen to, and it's not until the 10th listen that I really absorb it and I really find like some cool nuances in the music. Ditto with movies, man. It's like I'll watch something and I'll start picking stuff up, or my mind will put something together and be like, wow, you know what? This is a really cool concept. This is a really cool film. There's some really cool things going on here. It's exactly the same idea, man.
Yeah, it's a great way to put it. Yeah, and I think movie nerds like us tend to watch movies many a time and have the opportunity for that to happen. So
yeah, definitely. Although I will add that the longer I'm around, the less inclined I am to do that, and the more I seek out new things.
It's a bit of a balancing act, yeah.
So I would watch movies a shit ton of times. And now I find like some things I'm getting less enjoyment out of them, like the curve of, what I, like for instance, and this shouldn't be a death because I'm not referencing this. I'm not referencing this by comparison, but the original Star Wars movies, for instance, I try not to watch too many times anymore because I don't want to destroy them. You know what I mean?
Dilute them, yeah.
So it depends, I was actually kind of like, oh man, because I've seen Riddick a shit ton of times, and I was like, do I even really need to watch this again?
Yeah.
So like, I kind of like hemmed and hawed, and then I finally sat down. But as soon as I started it and got into it, I was like, oh fuck, I'm glad I'm watching this right now.
Totally.
Yeah.
So it had been like just the right amount of time for me to dive back into it,
Well, I think that's a really interesting point that you just brought up, Ben, because you're right. Like, you and I have watched Riddick together numerous times,
Oh yeah.
and that was in our probably, early 30s. But it's like as you get older, I think you naturally kind of start looking for something newer, something original. It's like you once you've seen it all, you've seen it all. And I'm really just talking about in terms of like themes and storylines and things like that, and
Yeah.
certain lines in films. So I definitely get what you're saying, and it's a great addendum to what Chad and I were just talking about. And I also think that I think all those films, when I watched a lot of those films when I was younger, I was just stoked about them, and I would get this great rush and energy from watching them, and excitement as well. But I think now it's more comfort food.
Yeah.
So I still love to watch those things, but it's the reasoning behind them has shifted. So some nights I'll get into bed and I'm just absolutely shredded from the day and the week and all of that, man. And I literally will sometimes I'll say out loud, but always in my mind I'm like, I need comfort food. And comfort food to me is movies like this that I've seen 1,000 times that I know are not going to disappoint me. I know that I love them, and I know it's going to give me X amount of enjoyment,
Yeah. And your familiarity with it literally does bring you comfort.
Exactly. Exactly right. It's like eating a thick, hearty stew.
Comfort stew. The when you mentioned that a second ago, Benny, it made me think of a couple of things. Like, on the one hand, I feel very similarly about books. Like, I'm finding some of my favorite books, when I revisit them, I'm finding that I like them less by revisiting them. And so, kind of like very similar to what you said, like I'm trying to stay away from some of them just because I don't want to ruin them. And then the other thing that popped into my mind was the old, psychedelic demigod Timothy Leary's quote of "Once you get the message, hang up the phone." And I kind of feel like that's part of it too, where like some of these movies, it was trying to understand them by watching them many a time, or really like mine the depths of them. And then once you it crystallizes, maybe that's when it enters the comfort food nostalgia phase, So similarly, like I think sometimes these movies require a lot of viewings to really either acquire the taste or mine the depths of them. But other times it's like, got it, like with the Star Wars trilogy. Got it. Now I visited on a random occasion because I know it so well that it's become a comfort food, as opposed to a whatever world's best album that's always on repeat on the radio or whatever.
Yeah, and I really think for me, ditto goes with older films, right? So when I say older films, I mean pretty much anything that was made before I was born, right?
Yeah.
So classics like Casablanca and some of the noir films that we talk about on the other podcast. It's like I never watched that stuff, and people for years would say, "Oh, you got to watch this, you got to watch that," and I was like, certainly when I was like a kid, I was like not interested. Too old, too old, too old. Like looks old, feels old. Now in my life, I can very easily watch those films and go, "Wow, this is amazing," because you have that breadth of knowledge and experience of things that you've watched and seen and listened to, and you can really appreciate performances and nuance and music and all of that stuff on a whole different level, man. So it's really cool how I think, and this is sort of the locus of what we're talking about here, is that your relationship to the material shifts and changes throughout the years based on your own experience. It's like a living, breathing thing, it's constantly changing.
Yeah.
And I think that that's very cool. So your experience through your life lends to what your reaction is to various different bits of content, movies, music, all that stuff.
Sure. And to maybe segue back into Riddick, like on this recent viewing, I think the things that I appreciated most were the potential that the universe and the world building has, and especially when compared against Pitch Black, which was a much more simple survival style horror-y kind of monstery thing, which was great. It was perfectly fine, but this was such a step change for the Riddick movies. And it really kind of had a Dune vibe, you know, in a way, or like a Star Warsy universe is huge. There's a lot of potential here vibe, you know, and I really appreciated that they had the, you know, the cojones to attempt something that was like hinting at different races and stuff and not really plumbing the depths of it. Maybe for budgetary reasons, but like I was just like, yeah, cool, man. I'm totally on board with this.
Yeah, the world building and the sort of lore that they just touched on enough to get you curious about it, but didn't go so deep as to, you know, ruin it for you. Like they really did a good job with that.
Yeah, kind of prospecty in a way.
Yeah. Insane world building. I've just still never seen anything like it. You know, the whole idea of dying and going to this other verse and, you know, being promoted to full dead. Like I've never seen anything like that. It's very unique.
It was interesting. You don't see many darker sci-fi stuff, really. At least not that I can recall.
Wait, say that again. You don't see much what?
Of the like darker sci-fi, you know, kind of like
yeah.
It's not horror-y, but it's like the kind of, I don't know. I mean, I suppose you could kind of catch like sprinklings of the Borg in there a bit, and sprinklings of the Harkonnens and Dune, and you know, there's a lot of influences and stuff. But to my mind, I can't recall much sci-fi film or TV that's like super dark, like the Necromongers and stuff.
Maybe something like the Sith Order.
Yeah, that's
has a vibe like
interesting. It never really got explored overly in that universe. So it's kind of like anytime there's like darker stuff, like the Borg or like the Sith, it tends to be like a side character or a side hustle. Whereas this is kind of one of the core components, and I really appreciated that like kind of dark kind of gothic-y element of it for sure.
I agree, and I just thought of one too. So the only thing that this makes me think of is Event Horizon.
Oh yeah,
which started Larry Fish, Sam Neill, Jason Isaacs. Came out a while ago. Might have come out before this film, and that's a movie about, you know, using a, you know, sort of transwarp drive and then, you know, by accident kind of crossing over into this other dimension that's like completely psychotic and demonic.
Into hell.
You got like Doom as well, yeah.
Exactly. And whatever you want to say about Event Horizon, it's freaking creepy, man. I remember watching that and being really creeped out. There's some disturbing imagery and concepts in that movie. And I would say it
was supposed to be even worse.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. Yeah, they apparently had to like cut up a bunch of shit out of that movie to just get it seen, just to get like an R rating.
Kind of like Cobra?
Yeah, apparently.
Exactly like Cobra. Slight cul-de-sac. Are you guys into horror movies and stuff? Because I'm really not overly into horror movies.
No, I'm not. I used to love them when I was a kid, but I just don't care.
My appreciation for them is growing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Absolutely. But it depends. You know, a lot of stuff that we grew up with was just stupid. You know.
Yes, and I think that's why I got not into them. I got out of them, and I agree with Ben. I think you're right. Actually, if I think about it, if I see one that's really good, like I remember seeing Paranormal Activity, and I was like, as a full grown adult, and I was like, wow, this is freaking scary. Like, you know, it looks real. Like, so yeah, I guess yeah, sure.
To like touch on the Scott Pilgrim, like bi curious, bi furious. Like I'm definitely like horror curious, but I just don't really fucking like it most of the time. So I think that's one of the things I like a lot about Riddick is it has like sprinklings of darker stuff, but it's not just like full blown fucking needlehead, whatever, Hellraiser, Pinhead, whatever, you know. And I just like
Pinhead, Needlehead. There you go.
Whatever, you know what I mean.
And there you go, folks. You heard it here first. Chad is bi horror curious.
Yeah, I'm horror curious.
I think to bring it back to center, you know, this movie has the whole idea of Underverse and the Necromongers. There are some very creepy elements to it. And I remember thinking that on my first couple of viewings, and it stuck with me even to this day. You know, like when he tears that guy's soul out in the middle of that room, I was like, wow, that's intense, man, you know? And just the sort of not zombie is not the right word, but I'll use that anyway, like sort of zombie-esque kind of state that all the necromongers get into, and the marks, and it's like you don't really know what happens when you receive the mark of the necromonger, and you know, anything unknown is always sort of frightening, you know. And I don't know, all that really cool sort of dark matter energy that the ships kind of use and suck in, like just creepy, man. Creepy, for sure, creepy.
I love the undead cell phone dudes that they talk to each other through. I love that stuff too.
The quasi-deads.
Yeah, that is really cool stuff.
Bring him before the quasi-deads.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, the quasi-deads were super cool. And again, you know, world building. Like, when have you ever seen something like the quasi-deads in a movie? Like, never. Like, just really, really cool, man. And the attention to detail on top of the world building is so good, man. I mean, they don't have a home planet, but when they're done ravaging a world and the entire armada lands, it like creates an entire city with Necropolis at the head of it. And then they kind of walk down this giant lane, and it's like just awesome, man, you know? And the imagery, you know, the three faces, the all-seeing Lord Marshal, you know, that imagery is everywhere. And I can't even finish talking about it because there's too many thoughts going through my head about it. Like, I can't. The world building is so good. You know, like we talked about great world building in Nausicaa, man. This is on par with that in terms of like scope and originality, you know?
Yeah, I just referring to the necromongers, I started going down a wiki hole.
Nice.
And I stopped myself because I didn't want to know. Like, I read like the first part and I was like, okay, all right, yep, that makes sense. And then like I realized there was like a whole fucking thing about like the history and how the necromongers got started and all the various rulers, and like I was just like, whoa, okay, I don't want to know this shit. So
you started getting a wiki hole in the side of your neck and were like, back out of the room slowly.
Yeah, exactly. I could feel the pins pricking in. But
yeah, I want to know. I want that stuff to come in film or TV form from Diesel and Twoey. Like,
hopefully, Furya covers some of that stuff.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, I don't want to read it. I mean, like, I'm not knocking fan fiction or any of that because, like, I love when people do that. I think it's cool, but it's not always the right thing to do. And in this case, like, I agree with Jarhigo. I don't want to know, man. I don't want to know. I want to find out later.
On your comment a second ago about originality, like, I kind of disagree a little bit in the sense that, like, I don't think a lot of the maybe notes in the Riddick movies are original necessarily, but I do see them as very astute kind of homages to a variety of different things. And so, like,
all right, fair enough.
We've talked at times about, you know, this person ripping off this and that person ripping off that, and how sometimes when theft is done really well, it's actually like either elevates or like is a great new take on it. And I think that the Riddick universe is like a great new take on a lot of stuff that had already kind of been explored a little bit, you know?
Sure.
To rattle off a couple of examples, you got like, you definitely catch some Dune vibes, you definitely catch some Harkonnen from Dune vibes, you definitely catch some Paul Atreides vibes. I mean,
definitely.
Even the Quasi-Dead, you've got kind of the Minority Report thing. So there's like a whole lot of stuff that it kind of, and like even like the Roman history in terms of these guys dropping down from the sky. So like there's a lot of source material that are pulling from, but the way it's mixed together, to use one of your, I think it's your term, Kev, the jambalaya it's a tasty jambalaya.
That's a Benny.
Is it a Benny? All right.
Because I just listened to Expanse 3 yesterday, and and I was laughing. I was raking leaves, and I was laughing specifically at Ben giving
Boys,
this.
I'm down in the galley of the Rocinante, and I'm making up a delicious jambalaya, just like we used to make back on Mars.
The funny thing about that segment in that show was that Ben gave a really great detailed description of how X was jambalaya. We were talking about the profanity, and that with profanity, it was a spicy gumbo.
But yeah, I see what you're saying there, Chad. It's not necessarily the most original stuff, but it's really well used.
It's a fucking great remix.
It is a killer remix.
They've done really cool things with those borrowed items.
Definitely.
Well, I mean, look, this is what a lot of creativity is, guys. And I was going to save this as a nugget for the nugget section, but I will add that they borrowed from Star Trek as well, because when Dame Vaako has Ariane in that ship and opens that hatch, she starts wielding a bladed weapon that looks almost exactly like a Klingon batleth.
It's a fucking batleth, dude.
It's Kev. It's a batleth.
It is. Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's kind of a lot of Klingon-y looking tech going on with the necromongers.
A little bit. I think it's cleaner, but yeah.
I mean, the fact that they run in with like hand weapons and that kind of a thing. It's there's something Klingon-y there for sure.
Yes. Yeah. And the armor has some Klingon kind of elements to it as well.
Can we just take the opportunity, since you mentioned Ariane, to say how fucking awesome it was that Judi Dench was in this movie?
I mean, it's funny, when I was making notes about the other actors in this movie, in my head I said, we don't need to talk about Judi Dench because she's amazing and everybody knows how amazing she is. And if you don't know who Judi Dench is and you don't know her body of work, you should leave the podcast right now.
And watch it and come back, because we want you to stay.
Exactly. Well, and again, a nugget that may not be a nugget, but this is what I either read or heard, is that Diesel went to England where she was doing a show, and he went backstage and apparently waited in her dressing room with flowers and was able to woo her and convince her into doing this film, which I thought was very cool. I mean, she adds a lot of, muscle to this movie. Really, all of the actors do. There's really not a weak link in the chain.
There's the only other thing I've got on her was there was like an anecdote where she was saying like, yeah, I had a really good time and the sets were amazing. I had no idea what I was fucking saying, but it was a lot of fun. I love that.
Yeah, that sounds very Sean Connery,
Yeah, no idea what was going on, but that's like the Alec Guinness Obi-Wan thing too,
right? Yeah.
What the hell is this picture all about? That was terrible. That was terrible. Shoot me. That's a death right there.
Yeah, you have to turn your Chuck Connors in now.
Chuck Connors.
Oh shit!
One of my favorite moments from this show.
I know, because you've referenced it numerous times.
Hey, whatever.
I'm sitting there editing Cobra, right? And I get to the Joe Fowler part, Kev's lifelong dream, you guys making fun of me, and what do? I start watching Joe Fowler videos again for like 45 minutes.
I want to take this opportunity to turn this into a mid-roll.
Joe Fowler videos again. Joe Fowler videos again. Joe Fowler. Joe Fowler. Joe Fowler.
Hi, Joe Fowler here. Joe Fowler. Joe Fowler. Joe Fowler. Joe Fowler here.
Folks, please share this podcast with a friend, because if we can monetize this enough, Kev can quit his day job and just watch Joe Fowler videos full time with his new career as a wannabe infomercial star.
And that'll be great, because it'll curb him from doing it in the middle of the podcast while we're recording.
He can have his own spin-off podcast, which is just infomercials.
I am looking for my son.
Hi, Joe Fowler.
Aha!
Aha!
Hi, Joe Fowler.
Videos again. Joe Fowler videos again. You too can help people like Kevin by donating to our podcast now. You too could save podcasts.
So where do we want to take this thing? You guys are in the driver's seat on this one.
Fair enough. We just left off with where exactly were we?
We just left off with I have no idea.
I was doing I did a very bad Connery impression, and that was my death.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I think Jarhigo is going to do the rest of the show with that voice. I love it.
Benny, you're next, man.
Well, wait, where did we? Does either one of you? Where were we?
It was Judi. I diverted us into Judi Dench, so we have a clean slate as to where we're going, I think.
Okay, cool. So we could either talk about the cast. We can, talk about. We don't need to play-by-play this film, except maybe to mention like some great moments and lines.
We've been kind of high leveling, I think. Maybe we want to switch gears to something else. Or they're getting into maybe Judi Dench is into talking about some of the actors in this.
Let's talk about the cast.
So, and similar to Judi Dench, I loved Thandie Newton or whatever her name is. What was her name? Thandie whatever.
Thandie Newton.
Thandie Newton, yeah. She's awesome, man. She wasn't in a bunch of stuff back then, but she's a legend in Westworld, and I have a huge appreciation for her now.
Precisely.
Well, she's getting major exposure in Westworld, which is a great show. I always thought she was fantastic. I mean, the first thing that I saw her in was Mission Impossible 2, and I thought she was great in that and played like a great sort of, Bond girl kind of thing in that, even though it was Mission Impossible, not Bond. Like, she was fantastic, and just a great sort of, not a classic beauty, but like, just all those qualities of that kind of gorgeous, exotic movie star. I was like, wow, she's really interesting looking and, super capable actress, all that stuff. And she's done some really cool stuff. And I was super stoked when I saw her in this. I knew who she was straight away.
Yeah.
I thought she was great in this, but I don't recall her being in anything before seeing it. And of course, now I really know and love her as Maeve in Westworld.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, and I think it's easy to forget, too, certainly for a lot of people in the U.S., this is not an American actress. She is an English actress. She's done so many American productions. Like, she was in Crash, which was an Academy Award-winning film back in the earlier 2000s. She's done a lot of stuff. Gridlocked, she was in Interview with the Vampire. Well, a lot of movies that are, high profile.
I definitely kind of get what you're saying about the Bond girl thing, even though it wasn't a Bond movie. Like, it was, in a way, like a risky role because it could have totally pigeonholed her as a looker as opposed to an actor. And clearly she's got the chops now that we've seen a bunch of stuff. And like, she is incredible as Maeve. So
yeah, and she was in Solo, a Star Wars story.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Good old Solo.
But focusing on her in this film for a second, just to go off of what Chad said, super capable actress and brings just, again, A-game, a ton of depth to Dame Vaako. It very easily could have been dismissed as like just a sort of an ornament character to Vaako, but she really brings it to life. You said the same thing in The Expanse 3 episode, 4, talking about Bern Gorman being a flat character in the book and how Bern Gorman really brought a lot of depth and nuance to Murtry, and she does the same thing here. Easily, again, could have dismissed that character as just like, oh yeah, it's his wife. It's like, no, she's like, not like it's like super original. I mean, she's kind of pulling the strings from the background, but she really gets into and adds that lore of the universe and the world building into her character, man, in spades. And I absolutely love that. And she just...
As 50's dad might say, she's the real brains of the operation.
There you go. She just looks amazing, too. And again, the part of this is the attention to detail that the production designers and the costumers and the makeup people put into this film is she looks incredible. Like, the attention to detail to her makeup, her hair, her costuming, it's incredible, man. Like, I was really paying note to the hairstyles that she had in the last viewing that I did last night. And I was just like, my God, man, she must have been sitting in the chair for hours having that done. Like, and she wears it so well as part of her character. That's really what I was driving at.
Yeah.
No, she's great. And I feel like the character that's sort of in the background, really pulling the strings, sort of plotting and manipulating, like it's a well-used thing in movies. It's a well-known character. It's been done a bunch of times, but she does it really well.
It's interesting because Lord Vakko ends up trying to kind of weasel behind the scenes of the Lord Marshal, and then she's weaseling behind the scenes of Lord Vakko. So it's kind of like plans within plans. So maybe it's a slightly different take on that trope.
I really get the impression that Vaako probably wouldn't be trying to make a power grab if she wasn't filling his head with the idea.
Yeah, totally.
Agreed. And he reveals as much to the Purifier when he goes on the solo mission to find Riddick, you know?
Right.
First and foremost, I am a necromugger commander.
I'll say something a little controversial in that I love Karl Urban, but his character in this maybe, as opposed to him, would have been a little bit wooden or two-dimensional without the Dame Vaako kind of yin-yang thing going on. If it was just him, like, trying to take the throne and there wasn't a partner in crime, I think it would have potentially not been as enjoyable or maybe not as, I don't know, fleshed out. And I don't think that speaks ill of Karl Urban, but I think the Vaako character is made significantly better by the fact that he's got a partner in crime.
I think that you are dead, and I think that anyone that speaks out against Karl Urban, especially Vaako, is instantaneously destroyed by a 20 megaton nuclear explosion.
Fair enough. I stand by what I said.
Dead. I'm kidding. I think that I agree with you, actually. He would have been not necessarily two-dimensional, but definitely a little bit. He's a little bit Woody, yeah.
Look, he wouldn't have been plotting against the Lord Marshal without Dame Vaako. He's essentially a good soldier, which isn't the most interesting of characters, you know? Like he would essentially just be submitting to the will of the Lord Marshal and just waiting for orders and that kind of a thing. So the fact that Dame Vaako is there sort of gives him an inner world and creates a conflict, and that wouldn't be there otherwise. So I think you're exactly right. That yin-yang play between them is crucial to that part of the story. Otherwise, you wouldn't even give a background story for Lord Vakko. He would just be the obedient, hand of the Marshal, like, in the background. You'd see him get sent after people and stuff, but there wouldn't be any, of that background conflict.
Mm-mm.
Like I said, Jimmy, she's the real brains of the operation.
Speaking of which, did you guys get a bottle of Lord Vakko in your quarantine travels?
No, it's the quarantine, man.
The $5 wine bin was wiped out.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe everybody else was getting their Lord Vakko too, There's no teepee anywhere and there's no Lord Vakko anywhere.
Lord Vakko's Necromonger Red.
How did that whole thing start? I remember you mentioning it in passing before, but what's the story with this?
We were drinking, and Ben, jump in anytime, please, to correct me. We had watched this movie, we loved this movie, and we had found this inexpensive Portuguese wine, and it's actually called Grau, Grao, Vasco, I think.
Yeah.
And, it was good. And at the time, I remember we grabbed it not knowing what to think, and it ended up being really good. I think one other time we were getting together, one of us said, like, oh, yeah, why don't you just grab some of that Vaako.
Grab some of that Lord Vakko.
Lord Vakko's Special Reserve or whatever, and it was us, and it became an instant classic.
I love that.
Yeah, it had a very gothic sort of looking label. It looked very necromongery. So
that's awesome.
Lord Vakko's Necromonger Red.
Folks, we don't always drink when we do the podcast, but when we do, we drink Lord Vakko's finest wine.
Or Barefoot Bruno's.
Indubitably. So can we transition from the Lord Vakko wine to Lord Vakko himself? I think we need a Lord Vakko love fest.
Great segue, Chad, as you were the king of the segues, riding on a segue. on a necromonger ship.
Riding a Segway on a transition.
Yes, exactly.
In gleaming the turd.
A Bruce Smith movie.
A Bruce Smith movie. That's a long title, but I like it. We can work with that.
My segue's being ruined.
I mean, honestly, man, I think that you kind of said it all, and we with Vaako, I mean, the two characters work together very well, and Karl Urban, being like Ben said, he's a good soldier, so there's not a lot there, but Karl Urban as an actor is able to bring so much nuance and energy and great choices to that character. In just every single scene, he's just fully committed all the time. Like actors talk about that, directors talk about that. It's like oftentimes when you watch something and it's not great, it's because they're not committed to what they're doing in that moment. And God damn it, he is always fully committed 105% to everything he's doing in every moment. And that is exactly why we love Karl Urban and why we want to do like an entire Karl Urban extravaganza. I mean, the guy's great, and that's the kind of game he brings to every single role that he does. And he's done a lot of really interesting science fiction roles. And a note about that is that, a lot of these science fiction roles, it's like there are no references. You have to come up with your own sort of frame of reference to give to these characters, because oftentimes they're contextually, there's nothing to sort of compare him to, so he's really good at that. And I really dig that. I mean, my God, his portrayal of Bones McCoy is legendary in my opinion. I mean, nobody could have pulled that off any better than he did. And Vaako is just an intense character, man. And he brings the intensity.
Yeah.
And you're scared of him. And you should be, because he's a freaking badass. He's almost as much of a badass as Riddick is.
Yeah, there's a very menacing body language and an efficiency of language. And Karl Urban pulls it off so nicely, so subtly, which is really hard to do when you're rocking a necro mullet.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
And
Dude.
Huge armor. Do you think that he got his power from his rat tail braids? Is that where the necromonger power came from?
Absolutely.
No, I would say the entire necro mullet, from his fahiv all the way back to the end of the rat tails.
Yes. And the neck buttholes.
And the neck well, the rat tail, the braided rat tails has the like, he went with his sorority to spring break to Cancun, and they kind of got like
Totally
braids put in, and they never took them out, and that's where it all came from.
Oh my God. Yes. Circa 1992. Yes.
That's when the necromongers found him, and his hair has never grown back or changed since.
Maybe that's where the necromongers were. That's the lore that you didn't read on Wikipedia, Ben, was it was actually a sorority thing in Cancun gone wrong. And the necromongers came out of that.
When necromongers go wild, the spring break addiction.
With Snoop Dogg.
Sorry, I screwed that up.
They just all got really tired of surfing and playing volleyball on the beach and being tan all the time, and that's why they're all so pale and spend all their time indoors now.
They went on tour to like a Mayan ruin, and someone opened a crypt, and it just like unlocked the potential of the universe, and the underverse was there.
Whoa. That is some great lore right there, dude.
I saw it on the Wikipedia, man.
I love it. Anyway, but here's the last thing I'll say about Karl Urban is that this is how cool he is. He did not have to do the 2013 Riddick movie. It was a small part. It was a cameo.
Totally.
But that's the kind of person he is. Not the kind of actor he is that he knows that it'll lend to the material, and he understands that there's a fan base there. And he brought it. And I love that. That's what I love about him.
Totally.
So,
in terms of Karl Urban, I don't view it as like one of his biggest roles or like a breakout role for him or anything. But he does it so well that, it's not like a standout thing, but he knows the correct energy to bring to the part, I think.
Absolutely. We got to figure out what movie that's from.
I know.
So where are we moving? Where are we moving from this?
I don't know. Give me a good scene. Give me one of your favorite scenes.
All right, here's what I'll say for favorite scene. Like my first notes, because I did take quite a few notes. This movie had a great double opening. And you don't really see this a lot, but I really feel like it was a double opening. As the universal graphics for the film kind of finish up, it blends right into one of the necromonger ships flying in sort of comet formation and then like lands on the planet. And then it's a shot of the Lord Marshal watching it with the three-faced mask.
Yeah, that was sick.
And then his head turns right towards the camera and then he walks off. And it's just the scope of the shot and what's going on there is so huge and so dramatic. It's such a great opening. And then we get a whole nother opening, which is this super tight shot of Riddick's feet clambering over these pieces of stone, and then a super tight shot on his face as he's running with full beard and hair. And we see him from a distance. They show the graphics to identify the planet, and then the ship just comes flying right in front of the frame. And it is so dynamic. I was just like, wow, like I had another whole level of appreciation for the opening of this film. I was like, that is just incredible. So well done.
Yeah, totally. That opening sequence with him on the fingerprint planet and taking the ship from out from under, what's his name, was great.
Toombs.
And now we can talk about Toombs. That's part of the reason I said that.
Really, really quick. Toombs ship is super cool looking.
Yeah, that was really cool.
There are kind of some neat ship designs in this, but Toombs ship is really cool. It's sort of scarabby looking design. And I love that the whatever the drive is for it has this kind of like liquidy weird quality to it. Like when they show it speeding away, like you can sort of see this like that like the main drive sort of leaves this like vortex of vapor in the air. Yeah.
Oh yeah, when it's taken off into space. Yeah.
Yeah, some really neat, unique kind of ship design and ideas there going on.
Let's talk about Nick Chinlund because I got plenty to say about Nick Chinlund.
I just love the character, man. I love the fucking cheesy tough guyness of Toombs. It's incredible. The line, his lines are fucking great, and his interactions with Riddick are awesome. Like I love that they left room for Toombs to come back in a future movie in this,
Yes.
I love that he didn't get iced. He's just trapped, and you get the sense that he's going to find his way out and go back after Riddick at some point, or maybe even team up with him. Who knows? But what do I have here? They're talking about where they should drop off Riddick when they have him in the back, and like they're talking about all these different prisons or whatever, and he's like. Health clubs for waffle eating pussies. Oh man,
he's got some great stuff, dude. I loved I love how close this movie was to the 90s because he has like a sweet Guy Fieri kind of goatee beardy thing going on, and I loved it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, like the total cheese dick facial hair kind of thing going on.
Oh, yeah. The ridiculous sideburns a la Corn or Limp Bizkit or whatever, like so good.
Especially now looking back on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think he did a great job of like, being cheesy and being a badass at the same time.
Yeah.
Because the scene on Helion Prime when Riddick's trying to escape the Necros. And then all of a sudden, these rockets blow up the Necro ship, and you're like, "Wait, what's going on here?" And then there's Toombs.
Oh yeah,
he's the first one to speak, and he goes, "2 things you should have done different," And I was like, "Yes," it's.
I love that. Find the ship locator, and number 2, dust my dick when you get the chance.
Exactly, man. And he didn't. But what's cool about that, Ben, is that it shows that he's not just a shirker, man. You know what I mean? Who can't handle himself. Like he knows what he's doing, and that makes it even cooler. And that's half writing and half Nick Chinlund.
Yeah,
him surviving on the fingerprint planet would have been a great spinoff.
Yeah, and then steals his own ship back.
Yeah, and versus Riddick, that's a feat, man.
Absolutely. At the same time, though, like Riddick kind of sets it up. Like he gets blasted, and then he's just like, "Yeah, I'll let these guys capture me and give me a ride where I'm going. That's fine."
Right? Yeah. Like he was always one step ahead of him or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. He's like, what took you so long?
Exactly.
So great. So here's what I'm going to add about Nick. I met Nick Chinlund.
No shit.
And yes, I did. Because Nick Chinlund is actually a cousin of a very good friend of mine. And I was doing some work for her years ago, and she made some comment about my cousin doing some movie. And I looked up and I said, your cousin is Nick Chinlund? And she goes, you know who my cousin is? Yes, I do, because I'm that kind of nerd. So cut to, I don't know, a year later, I actually got to meet him and sit down at my friend's house with him on the patio and talk to him while he smoked a stogie. And then we had dinner together later that night with a bunch of different people. And I can tell you that he is a super cool guy. He was definitely stoked at how much of a fan I was of Riddick and Toombs. He really, really appreciated that. And I told him, I was like, this is a cult movie, man. And he I said, there's a lot of people that really like this film. And he was into it, man. He really liked that a lot. But he was a lot of fun, and he was a really cool guy. So it was just awesome to meet him. I was really, really stoked about that.
That's great, man. Yeah, I mean, he brought just the right amount of energy to this role. Like,
yeah,
if he had cranked it up one more notch, it would have been way too fucking much. And also, it wouldn't have been half as memorable if it was one notch lower. You know, like he really brought it, and it's such a great character, and I love it. And I hope we get to see Toombs again sometime in the future.
Well, I had never seen, what was it, Dark Fury or whatever, the like anime that you mentioned earlier, and I was stoked to see Toombs as his character in that one. That was really cool, like a cool kind of middle movie between Pitch Black and this one.
Oh my God, yeah. And I remember when I was talking to Nick, I think it was, this film was 2004. I probably met him between 2008 and 2012. And I remember asking him, I was like, please tell me there's going to be another film with Toombs in it and, Riddick, blah, blah, blah. He didn't have any information, but I was like, that would be amazing. Because I loved seeing him in Dark Fury as well. And I think anybody that you ask that's a fan of this film or this franchise, like, he is a standout character. There is no question about it. Everybody wants to know what happened to Toombs and is Toombs coming back? Because the cool thing is that Johns, who is played by Cole Hauser, who's another great actor in Pitch Black, he doesn't come back, but he comes back in the sense that, like, it was his father that came looking for him. He wanted to, that's why he hunted down Riddick in the 2013 film, was because he wanted to know what happened to his son. So I was like, so when I think about that, and I'm like, if they're going to bring Johns back in that way, they can bring Toombs back. I mean, come on.
Well, there's always like a John/Toombs character in these movies, and I love that Toombs fulfilled that role in this one. But it was such a cool way to have kind of commonality between three such different movies, to have, it's kind of antagonist protagonist, but it's kind of like, I don't know, it's almost, this is for you, Benny, it's almost like Batman Joker, like it's a it's a hero villain, but like the plot of the movie isn't relating to Toombs necessarily, but he's got an awesome kind of like side thread.
Definitely.
The opening scenes that you're talking about, Kevin, kind of the first act, everything kind of gathering steam. I thought it was super interesting that they shifted to a Guardians of the Galaxy prison planet kind of thing. Obviously, Guardians, I think, is paying homage to the, what's it called? Crematoria. I definitely think GOG is paying homage to Crematoria with the first movie. And yeah, it was an interesting change of pace and one of the better action sequences with the whole running on the surface stuff. So that whole prison planet stuff was great.
Yes, Crematoria is very cool. The whole sequence, the whole idea, again, world building. Like the fact that they take the time to show the name of every single planet that they visit in this film. I love that. It just adds more layers of detail. So it's like the snow planet, the fingerprint planet, the fingerprint planet. Jesus Christ. The fingerprint planet was called UV System Planet 6. I mean, it's essentially like a no-name system, and it's like they even took the time to do that, you know? Igneon system, crematoria, you know? Like, so cool. And crematoria was just, what a cool concept, man. It's like the night side is negative 200, and the day side is, you know, plus 200. I mean, my God, man. What a cool idea.
Yeah, I mean, there were always some things that kind of bothered me about that. Like, how would there ever be breathable air on the surface of that planet? Like, clearly there are no plants or, you know, it doesn't seem like there would be any way that there could be like an atmosphere on it. But, you know, I also kind of like the fact that, like, it seems like, you know, it's not just that, like, it's so close to the sun or whatever, but, like, it's seemingly, like, made out of, like, something that's just flammable on the surface. So that, like, when the heat peaks to a certain temperature, like, the planet just fucking catches on fire.
Well, yeah, there's got to be air there somewhere because the fire. There's a fire.
But how? You know, like, it just seems, I don't know. Somebody smarter than me can tell me how that might work, but
I like that. I like that they just don't. They're like, fuck it, it's a planet that lights on fire. We don't need to explain ourselves. Like, all right.
But that's okay, you know, that's sci-fi should be like that sometimes, you know, like.
I agree. No, Ben, I agree with you, but I also am just like I remember thinking about that at one point, you know, over the years and being like, that doesn't matter. Don't care. Nope. Don't care.
Yep.
Don't care. Nope.
Fingers in your ears. La, 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 la.
Yeah, la, 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 la. Exactly. Because I was like, I don't care. It's so cool. The concept is so cool. It's plowing through any logical physics or science. Like, I was like, it doesn't matter. You know, it's like the part when he's like, oh, so they do go topside to swap out air. It's like, right. From where again? You know, like, okay.
I'm sure somebody could come up with an explanation, but and I don't know why among all of the things that, you know, like don't get explained in the movie, that one glares out at me, but for some reason it always did.
Yeah, well, you know, things like, I mean, that was how I felt about Toombs' ship. Like, I was watching it and I was like, again, the drone. The thing's like a third of the size of the ship. Where is it hiding in the ship? You know, like that was the thing that jumped out at me.
Folded like origami.
Yeah.
Exactly, man. You know, so here's our challenge to our listeners. Folks, come up with your best theory of how there is air on crematoria, and we will give you, on us, a free 32-ounce glass bottle full of air.
Sweet. We'll send you a bottle of Lord Vakko.
What? As a bonus, you'll get a bottle of Lord Vakko's finest reserve. Courtesy of us here at the EBD Podcast.com. I mean, crematoria, there's so much there. I mean, just the whole look of the prison on the inside was just, again, incredible, man. The stone, and it's like, it just kind of looks like one giant kind of volcano cavern, like inside of a volcano that has bars and doors kind of retrofitted onto it. I'm saying the prisoner section, you know, the part with the control room part is, you know, very different, obviously. And the way that thing lowers and rises on those giant screws is just super cool. I mean, again, this movie, man, the level of detail and everything is just so fantastic. And those crazy armored wolf cats, or whatever the fuck those things are.
Yeah, I was going to call them like cave lions or something. Definitely cool creatures.
Just when you think that it couldn't get any cooler with all that, we go outside and they're running through this, across the top of this lava planet, you know, like it just, and it looks so good and it looks so real.
The crematoria stuff was a great intro to Jack and Kira. I really liked that she was threaded back through.
No, that's a good segue right there. This was the first film I ever saw Alexa Davalos in, and she is like Thandie Newton and Judi Dench, just bringing A game and oodles of effort to the character and really fleshing it out and making it fantastic. She really, really dials it in and brings it right and just adds a lot to the character and a lot to the film and a lot to the dynamic with Riddick, you know?
Yeah, it kind of has the Dame Vaako vibe too, where she really fleshes out Riddick in this film. Where if it wasn't for her, it would just be, you know, him plodding along, killing people. And except in this case, he's got a great reason to sort things out.
Yeah, she's his Achilles heel, as it were. Seems like, you know, Riddick really doesn't have any vulnerabilities other than her.
Yeah.
I was going to say it differently, but yeah, that's the way to say it, Ben, for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the development, you know, because she's in the first movie, she's, you know, Jack. She's a girl pretending to be a boy to avoid unwanted attention, and it's interesting to see like what she's become between Pitch Black and this movie. That just sort of gone down this really dark path of like, you know, idolizing Riddick and trying to be like him, and how that experience on the Pitch Black planet has like shaped her.
Well, not only that, Ben, but what happened in between the two stories / films. Like what she describes to Riddick as serious trauma, being a young person slaved out by mercs. Like she's not a femme fatale in the classic sense. And that's why her being such a looker works against her almost in this character, because, you know, this is somebody that it's experienced like a lot of trauma, not, you know, oh, I just wanted to be like Riddick and, oh, you know what I mean? It's like monsters and like, you know, horrible people doing horrible things to you. I mean, Alexa is crushing it in Man in the High Castle. And I just watched the season 1 and 2 recap, but, you know, it was so good. It just got me jazzed to talk about Man in the High Castle again. But, you know, she's just so great in that. And it's so great to see her in that, because I always thought she was fantastic in this, and I was like, why are we not seeing her in more stuff, you know, more high-profile stuff? So when I saw that she was one of the leads in Man in the High Castle, I was just ecstatic, because I love, you know, great female actors, and she's definitely there.
Yeah, she killed it.
Totally. Killed it in Riddick, killed it in High Castle.
Definitely.
So I had a great segue from her. I mean, do you guys want to talk about Diesel?
Yeah, the elephant in the room.
The phenomenon that is Vin Diesel. I think that Diesel has been put in a room of being this action hero. Of course, he's very close to the Fast and the Furious franchise. I mean, that has turned into like a juggernaut. But he's also, along the way, made some films that were just total departures for him. And I feel like in some cases, he wasn't taken seriously enough. I think he can definitely bring it. I think he's almost been sort of stereotyped and typecast a little bit. And it bums me out, because I think he's a great creative force, to be honest with you. Like, working on the writing for this particular franchise, his incredible passion for these films, the Riddick universe, doing Groot, you know, that was like 100% voice acting right there. That was great. Great as Caparzo in Saving Private Ryan. That was one of his first films.
Just going to say that, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Even Knockaround Guys, which was sort of, you know, a little bit whatever. It was a good movie, and he was good in it. And Find Me Guilty. And, you know, he's done some interesting stuff, you know, that's not explosions and cars and all of that. And I think that he's underrated in a lot of ways, you know.
Definitely.
I think he's got more than people give him credit for. And I think without him, these films wouldn't exist, these Riddick films. So, you know, kudos to Vin.
Absolutely not. No, he is a total nerd off camera, and I love that about him. You know, like he's way into D&D, and
is he really?
All this different stuff. Yeah. So he's an interesting person. But he definitely has a lot more versatility as an actor than I think people give him credit for. You mentioned Find Me Guilty, and it's such a different kind of role for him. He's super kind of schlubby, and, you know, it's great. It's great. He has a lot of range that people don't give him credit for. Even Groot. I mean, the fact that you have 3 words that you're allowed to say, and you have to convey all of this different stuff with it. And he does it, you know, he does it really well. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, he always says, oh, I am Groot, you know, but but he conveys a lot with those 3 words, and that's not an easy task. So
No, it's not. It's not. Saying less is always the harder thing for an actor. Yeah.
yeah, and at the same time, you're smoking Newports and just throwing on layers of joint compound.
Dude, not easy either.
No, I'm with both of you guys, man. Vin Diesel's awesome. I loved him as Caparzo in Saving Private Ryan, and then I feel like you get Pitch Black, Fast and Furious, and Triple X. That is kind of a 1, 2, 3 for typecasting him, unfortunately. But he's done a great job in all the movies that I've seen him in. I would love to see him have like a Jim Carrey moment where he's given something to chew on and really show his abilities, or maybe more chances to show his abilities because he's clearly got the chops.
You know what, man? I agree with everything you just said, but at the same time, it's like I know he doesn't care.
Sure.
He's like that's that's the kind of person he is. He does what he does, and he's like, just let the work speak for itself. That's the vibe I get from him. I don't know if that's true or not. But.
No, and that's it's a great point, because to clarify, like, I don't want him to do stuff so that he's recognized. I just want to see him do other stuff, just because I'm curious to see what he would do. Like he clearly is like.
Selfishly.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to see him do a bunch of other stuff. Like, he's already a megastar. Like, he doesn't need to do a bunch of dramatic stuff to make his name even bigger. But I would just love to see him do some other things, just out of curiosity.
To be clear, he's very successful, and he's very good doing everything that he's done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you, Chad. I'd like to see him. I'd like to see how far you could push Vin Diesel in a dramatic role, because I think he could bring it. I really do.
Yes. And honestly, guys, comedic as well. He's got a great sense of humor, and again, I think it gets lost in the shuffle, man.
Yeah.
Well, people think I often think he's being tongue in cheek in some of these roles, and people think he's being egotistical or serious about things,
And that's why everyone's like, "Oh, what the fuck?" He's always, I totally agree with you that people think the things that he's doing on purpose is him. Showing acting weakness. Like I totally feel like it's a dry humor that he's tongue in cheeking his own mythos.
Yeah, agree.
I mean, who else could be Riddick? I could not picture anybody else doing that.
I couldn't either. No, there's something about him too, man. As a person, he's just got a magnetic quality to him. A certain energy. I think his killer combo is that he's nerdy, but he's also like very imposing and physical and all of that. I think that's what, and very capable. You know what I mean? I think that's what his killer combo is.
Yeah.
I could expound on that, but I think that's enough.
Yeah. I'd also mention the Iron Giant, even though.
Oh, hell yeah.
It's another role kind of like Groot, and I think that's how he actually got the role of Groot, was his performance in the Iron Giant.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
That's a classic.
So when you step back and you really take a look at his body of work, there's a lot of varied items in there, and you take like Triple X, Fast Furious, this, and then you look at like Iron Giant, Groot, Find Me Guilty, like there's a lot of variation there. Very cool. I don't have any other favorite scenes per se, Chad. Just some. I mean, I guess there's some moments that I really liked. And the next one will kind of lead into another actor that we can talk about who's fantastic, and that's the fight in the dark. Okay, inside Imam's house is fantastic, and it's a great combination of showing what's actually going on with this sort of strobe effect that's coming from the weapons being fired. And then you're also getting the view of what Riddick's seeing with his Riddick vision, his night vision. And I love that fight scene. I think it's fantastically done. Very difficult to do in the dark and make it look good. And that fight scene arguably does a way better job than the fight scenes in the, sorry in advance, Ben, Batman Begins, which I've always taken issue with, because I love that film, Batman Begins, but the fight scenes just really make me want to cry because you can't see anything. So it was really great. And then right after that, as he's escaping, there's just this fantastic use. David Choi uses this great contrast of light and shadow throughout that scene, with like the weapons flash constantly going off. And as Riddick is running across the rooftops trying to escape before he hooks back up with Imam and his family, there's just some great shots in there. And one in particular is he's running across the rooftops. And then all of a sudden they switch to a straight vertical shot up, and you see him jump over the rooftop, and just all the explosions and the battle is in the air above him. And it's absolutely beautiful, man. And then very shortly after that, he lands and then he stands up, and it's the exact same type of shot where it's shot from the ground looking up at him. And it just frames him so beautifully. And the backdrop of the night sky and showing the battle, it's just awesome, man. I just love that scene. There's a lot of moments in this film that are like that.
Yeah, that whole sequence was really good.
Yeah, really good.
I love those like weird diving bell sniffer dog zombie weird things too that happens slightly later in that sequence.
Oh, the lensers, yeah.
More neat, weird necromonger tech. Something
else very cool and very different. That will be my segue into talking about Imam, or Keith David, who is a incredibly talented, incredibly prolific actor who's been in, I hate to say everything, but everything.
Yeah, I can't think of much that he's been in. I'm sure everybody, Kevs, will tell me about it, but what's some of the stuff that he's been in?
Let's see. He was King in Platoon, which is where I first saw him. Mm-hmm. He played Spawn in the Spawn animated series. He played the lead gargoyle in the Gargoyles animated series. He was in Something About Mary. If I pull up his film credits, I mean, it's just, the list is endless, man. The guy has been in everything.
For me, he's like one of those actors that's lost to the ages. I just like forgot about him, and then I see him, I'm like, oh yeah, that guy.
He's the ever familiar face. Like every time I see him in a movie, I'm like, oh yeah, there.
I'm a huge fan of Keith David. I always have been since I saw him in Platoon, and he's fantastic. And again, just another piece of this puzzle, man. He adds a ton of great firepower to this incredibly talented cast.
Yeah, the whole new mecha opening, like they didn't need to spend as much time building, up new mecha, spending a lot of time designing new mecha, and I love that they did, because it made that opening sequence much more fleshed out as a result. It felt way more real than just some like bit piece 2-minute sequence or something.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And one of my notes was just how, and again, this speaks to the level of attention to detail in the film. The Helion warriors, from the ships to the uniforms to their rifles, like just so unique, and you can really see, how different their tech is. And it's detailed. Somebody put some thought into it. It's fantastic, man. I really, really like that. Their armor, their helmets, like the sort of scarves that they wear, just very, very cool, man. Great world building again.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you 100%. I think it's like one of the key strengths. Like the cast is great and all that stuff, but like we said quite thoroughly earlier, the world building is where it's at with this one for me.
Keith David was in Pitch Black, right?
Yeah.
As the same character, and I feel like
the Imam dude, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like he had sort of described New Mecha in that movie, and it's interesting to see it, to actually. I'm glad, like Chad said, I'm glad they took the time with it, because when you're coming from Pitch Black to this movie, it's cool to see that flesh, that which he described in Pitch Black fleshed out.
Yeah. And like I enjoyed Dark Fury as like a filler, but like it wasn't needed to tie the two movies together. Like it's almost kind of like it's almost like a bonus scene or something, as opposed to like needing to be canon and stuff like that. But
no, because I think Keith David and Imam, sorry to cut you off, Chad, but Imam, the character of Imam was enough to thread these two films together. That plus Jack / Kira, like.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So you're right. Labeling it as bonus content is the way to say it. It wasn't. It's not that it's unnecessary. It's just a cherry on top, really. And the fact that it was done by Peter Chung is even cooler. Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't ruin anything. It definitely had that the Animatrix vibe, kind of like bonus story kind of thing.
And just a quick sidebar while we're on the topic of Dark Fury. There's two for this sort of universe. One of them's called Pitch Black Slam City, and the other one is Riddick Blindsided. And they're motion comics. That's what they are. And if anybody wants to check those out, they're about 8 to 10 minutes long. You can easily find them on YouTube. We'll put some show note links for those, just to give more lore about Riddick and the world and all of that stuff.
Yeah, sweet. I saw those in passing in terms of that they existed, but I haven't seen them.
Yeah, I haven't seen them. I am now curious.
I started watching Blindsided last night. Yeah, it was good. I just was like, I don't have time for this. I was already doing too many things. So, and just another quick note, this is for the fans out there. For video game players, if you haven't played Escape from Butcher Bay or Dark Athena, check those two stories out. Those are not necessarily rated the best games in the universe. I know Jarhigo played Butcher Bay. I didn't play either of them, but they are highly regarded for the lore of the stories, and people definitely love the games. They've got a bit of a cult following as well. So
yeah, I think Butcher Bay was definitely underrated.
Yeah, and I did a little bit of reading about Dark Athena last night, and a lot of people were saying that the voice acting in Dark Athena was like bar none the best at the time. Like a lot of people thought that very highly of it. It had what's her name was in it from Michelle Forbes, who played Ensign Ro in Star Trek, and also she was in California with David Duchovny and Brad Pitt and Juliette Lewis. She's a fantastic actress. So she played the head sort of villain in Dark Athena. Also, Lance Henriksen had a voice role in that as well, and we all know Lance. He's amazing.
Yeah,
Is that Bishop?
Yup. The fact that you had to ask if that was Bishop. Insta-death.
Just making sure.
Insta-death. You are now dead.
Adios, turd nuggets.
Adios, turd nuggets. Chad, you are dead.
Pew, 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 pew.
We've been skirting around the other juggernaut in this film, the Lord Marshal. We got to get talking about the Lord Marshal.
We got him, man, because we got to wrap this. I feel like we could grind this out for like another hour and a half, but I don't really have that kind of time, and I know it's late for you. Let's talk about Colm Feore. My God, man, this is another one of these guys like Keith David. He's just a freaking tour de force, man, and does not get enough credit. But we did talk about Colm in the Umbrella Academy episode that we did, which may have been the episode that sparked us to talk about doing Chronicles of Riddick.
Maybe. Who is he in Umbrella? Is he the dad or whatever?
Plays Hargreaves. He plays the old man.
Yeah, cool.
Is he the dad or whatever?
I don't fucking know.
Talk about throwing away.
Yeah, just very dismissive tone there. I love it.
Yeah. Mr. Sci-Fi over here. Who is he? What is he, like the dad or whatever? Stupid.
Whatever. The show sucked.
I'm glad you suggested it and we spent so much time on it then.
Good God, man. Anyway, Colm Feore's been in a lot of cool stuff. Umbrella Academy, he's been on Law and Order. He's done a lot of stuff. Linus Roach, also another great actor. He was on Law and Order for a couple of years. Batman Begins, played Thomas Wayne.
Vikings, bro.
Vikings, exactly. Yeah, he's on Vikings now, which I still have never seen any of that.
Yeah, it's not the best, not the worst.
No?
Wait, who was he on Vikings?
He was the dingleberry British king that wants to bang the Viking queen.
Okay, all right, yeah.
I'm so not surprised to hear you label him as such.
Oh, he plays the perfect dingleberry though.
Yeah.
He was awesome in this one though, man. I love the Purifier. But wait, hang on. We got to circle back to the old Marshal. I like the character of the Lord Marshal. I think.
Yeah, I do too. So hang on, Chad. I just want to, he's again another one of these tour de force, super capable actors, can totally bring it, and he did. And I mean, he's amazing as the Lord Marshal. Go ahead.
I can't remember if it was you or Benny that mentioned it earlier. I think it was you when you're talking about the opening sequence with he walks out, or no, it's like a zoom in on the side of his helmet and he turns his face. There's a lot going on there with the Lord Marshal being, kind of like an Argus, all-seeing eye, faces on every side of his head, and yet towards the middle of the film, Judi Dench's character is he's afraid. He's terrified of the Furians, and so it's it's like actually a weakness and a paranoia that's like driving him to do many of the things that he's doing. And I kind of like that, you know, like he's got a face on each side of his head and a face in the front, and it doesn't really show the face in the back, like looking over his shoulder, but that's like a huge part of kind of like the character, and I really like that.
Wow, I never thought about that, man. That's an interesting. Yeah, I never thought about it like that.
It's an interesting, very like Fremen, Dune, the strongest is the kind of leader kind of thing, but there's so many different facets that are added to it that kind of make it more than a ripoff. Kind of like we spoke about a bunch of other subjects.
You keep what you kill.
Yeah, he's just menacing, imposing, not evil but dark. I'm just thinking these are the things that he has always conveyed to me doing that part.
I think he brings an interesting kind of cheer to the character.
Cheer, explain.
You know, well, his demeanor, like as you know, when they're in New Mecca and they're taking over and they have all those people in that, you know, auditorium or whatever it is, like his tone is kind of cheery. You know, there's an interesting cheer to, you know, to him, you know, and how he seems to approach his duties as Lord Marshal, and you know, converting the, you know, there's a cheer in converting the in the converts, I guess.
Yeah, no. I see where you're going with this, dude, and I like it. Yeah, you're right about that, and I never thought about it like that either.
Yeah,
he is. There's like almost like a joy there, and what makes it even more stand out more rather is that he very quickly turns when that guy stands up and he's like, "Nobody will do what you say. Nobody here will do what you say." And he's like, "Then I'll take your soul." And you're just like, what? Wow.
Yes. But there's even a cheer in that, you know? And then when Riddick crops up and he's like, you know, "What do you think of this knife?"
"I think it's a half gram heavy on the back end."
Right. And he's like, "You keep what you kill."
he so easily could have been like the creepy vampire, slimy villain, but you're right. He's like so pumped on his own dogma that he's like, no, seriously, have you accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? Like, no, guys, really, like, I'm serious. I'm so into this. I'm like, all right, I'll take your fucking soul, man.
No. I'm talking about Jesus.
Yeah. No, you're right, Benny. I hadn't thought of it, but it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, no, I like that too, Ben. That's a really great thought that we have not had before about this film or this particular character. But, you know, his sort of darkness and his creepiness also comes from that sort of all-seeingness, you know? Like, one of my favorite scenes in this film is when Vakko is sneaking up on him.
Totally.
He's talking about something else entirely, and at the same time, Vakko is walking up behind him very silently, and he finishes what he's saying, and the last of what he's saying is right behind you, and as he does that, he sort of turns in that kind of phantom form, and like right to Vakko, and it's like, it's so startling and unnerving.
And Carl Urban totally fucking clenches his butt cheeks. He's just like, oh.
Oh my God. Dude, he puckers so hard right there. You know
man.
it.
Yeah. He's so on to Vaako and Dame Vaako and their little plots and plans. He just like he knows about it the whole time. It's like the whole keep your enemies close thing. Did anybody have anything to add to Linus Roach and the Purifier?
I've got a nugget on him we could circle back to if you want, but otherwise we can do it.
You want to save that nugget till the end?
Can do. I don't know. Are we gonna go? Yeah, I'm really running out of steam. Not that means we need to stop, but it just means my fucking brain isn't working.
You know, it's funny when you put something like this in motion. It's like you can't really stop it, man. You know, people want more, especially when the world building is this good. You know.
Yeah, I think we're almost certainly going to miss things that we wanted to talk about. And of course, we're probably going to miss things that people wanted to hear us talk about. So
yeah, for sure.
No, I'm sure that we are. But look, I think we've, sort of covered the concepts of the story and the world building. And, that's the really important stuff, and the cast as well, and what made the film great, and why we think this film is great versus the 29% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes is that this movie is a movie out of time. Like it did not come out in the right time, you know?
Yeah, if it were coming out nowadays, it would have some fat Netflix or Amazon money behind it, probably.
Yeah.
I tell you what I would love to see. I would love to see Diesel and Chloe get some Prime or some Netflix behind this franchise and start to make it either into a series of films, like whatever. I really think that, I don't know, I feel like it's, and I guess we're sort of wrapping this and summing this up, but I really feel like this franchise just it suffers from bad timing. Pitch Black, even Dark Fury, Riddick, the 2013 Riddick, and Chronicles of Riddick, like they've all come out at the wrong time. There's nothing wrong with any of the world building, any of the lore, any of the actors, or any of it. I mean, it's all fantastic.
Yeah, I feel like Chronicles of Riddick particularly is sort of I feel like it's a movie that kept the home fires burning while sci-fi was sleeping. I don't feel like there was a hell of a lot going on around that particular time, and maybe there wasn't an appetite for it, but and I could be totally wrong about this, but
no,
I
think
feel
you're
like
right, man.
That's the kind of movie it was. Like, it was,
and it was pre-superhero.
Yeah, so there's something special about it there, and the fact that so many heavy-hitting actors came in to do not particularly huge parts, but brought so much energy to their characters. It's just, there's nothing else out there like it, really. It's a very unique kind of film, and the fact that it's a cult classic now is well-deserved, I think.
Definitely.
And I kind of like that it's still not necessarily critically acclaimed, but the fans that love it really love it.
Yeah. Do we want to touch on Lord Marshal getting his shit pushed in, or do we want to just skip over the end?
One thing I would say about the end of this film is, we end off with a reluctant. I'm reminded of this sort of Conan feel, where they always talked about like how Conan becomes this reluctant king, and he's lost the one that he really cared about, and there's a major parallel there with
Kira,
with Kira dying, and
Valeria.
Yes, and Riddick being the reluctant king on the throne.
It's funny that you brought that up, because I read a Reddit thread last night in our movies that was exactly that. The title of the thread was, "Why do people hate this movie so much?" So I went through a little bit of it, and that was one thing that somebody said. I was just going to bring up that, like, this movie's like Conan in space. That's how the guy classified it, anyway.
That might be accurate.
So, and I don't think it's Conan in space. Well, maybe it is, but I definitely, the end has the biggest sort of Conan parallel to it, of the reluctant king. Because all he's trying to do is avenge the loss of, one of the only people he cares about.
Yeah, it's like as if his fury and rage made him forget about the whole "you keep what you kill" clause. Well,
yeah, and I think that, and it's just a quick sidebar, I love that there's no stupid romantic component to this movie. Like it's actually great that it's like a real caring that a very hard character has for somebody who's really more like a daughter to him,
or like reluctant mentor.
And I really like that a lot. It really, we could have. I think out of the hands of Chloe and Diesel, somebody would have added some romantic nonsense to this, and it would have just freaking ruined it.
Definitely.
Anyway, so circling back to what Ben was saying, yeah, it's that King Conan vibe to it, And he's like, what am I going to do with all this shit? And then he doesn't convert, and that brings us into, that's where Riddick Blindsided picks up, and then Riddick, 2013 Riddick.
Oh, okay. So there's like a in-betweener on that one?
Yeah, Blindsided is the in-between motion comic on that part of the story, and then we go right into the 2013 film. So
I'll check that out. I like the way that Riddick gets to the throne, in the sense that, like, we touched on the Lord Marshal looking over his shoulder and being afraid, and the prophecy or whatever is that the Feorean's going to kill him. And I just thought it was super interesting that he's about to get taken down by Vaako and yet chooses Riddick as the person who kills him. So like it very much jives with what you guys were saying about he was on to Vaako the whole time, and he's given the choice. He's like, well, it's either Vaako takes the throne or Riddick, and he's like, fuck it, Riddick fulfills the kind of prophecy thing, because he could have just stayed put, so it's kind of an interesting thing.
Wow, that is very interesting. So you're saying that was a conscious choice to let Riddick take him down?
Well, it kind of seems like it in a way, and which is kind of interesting. It's on one hand, it's kind of weird, and on the other hand, it's kind of interesting. Like, it does kind of gel with the whole idea that he knew that the Vakos were nipping at his heels, and he's just kind of like, yeah, nah, screw those guys. I might as well just succumb to this whole prophecy thing anyways, because he could have just stayed where he was.
Meet the Vakos.
The Vakos. Merry Christmas from the Vakos.
Meet the Vakos. Yeah, that's an interesting thought. I never thought about it that way before. I always kind of thought that what was going on, or what was at play there, was that the Lord Marshal was trying to get away from Vaako, and Riddick just kind of happened to be right where he was going. Like, it wasn't so much of a conscious choice. It was that, like, the Lord Marshal had already put in motion sliding, using his weird spirit slide move away from Vaako, and, Riddick just happened to be, like, right there. Like, he didn't move towards him.
Yeah, and the only reason I say it is because he hesitates. He's, like, looking up at Riddick for a second and looking up at Vaako for a second. And you're just like, huh. But you're probably right. It's just kind of an interesting kind of maybe.
I always took it as, like, he was getting away from Vaako and happened to look up and see, like, oh fuck,
Yeah, fair.
Like, shit, Riddick's right here. He's waiting for me. This is the moment where I die.
Yeah, I agree with Ben. I've always thought that, but really more like Riddick was seeing the opportunity. Like, Riddick is so good at fighting, right? That he saw the way he was using with, I like how you called it the spirit slide, because I had no idea what to call that. And he saw Vaako coming at him. This is how I interpret it. And then he knew that the Lord Marshal was going to move where he was going to move next. And he was predicting where he would go. And that's
Reading
when
the play.
Drove the knife into his head and then broke it off. Yeah, exactly. That's how I always read it. But I like your sort of your theory there, your synopsis or interpretation. Yeah, very cool.
The maybe. It probably isn't. I'm probably overthinking it, but like just the fact that it's somewhat ambiguous, I kind of like. But yeah, either way, he ends up on the throne with his head in his hands.
Very fucking Conan.
It kind of always amazed me that Vaako didn't just jump up and fight him then. That's when he's at his weakest. But
I'd love to hear what some of the listeners think about that and some of the other things that we've said and posited throughout the course of this episode.
Nuggets rating?
Nuggets. Okay, so here's my 3 nuggets for this show. I just figured out that Toombs actually has a first name. Ben, do you know what that is?
No, I have no idea what Toombs' first name is.
I didn't either. It's actually listed in Wikipedia. I don't know if this is real, like from the script or not, but it's Alexander Toombs.
Really?
Yeah. It says Alexander Toombs. I was like, wait, what?
So I wonder what he goes by. Is he an Al? Is he a Sasha? Is he a Sandy?
He's a Xander.
Xander.
Because nobody named Alexander ever goes by Alexander.
It's true.
No, you're right.
Except for the Alexander.
Yeah.
Right.
Xanders always are like only childs. That's probably Toombs.
Oh, he goes by Toombs.
That's true.
Never mind. Let me give a hearty duh.
All right, so nugget number 2, I actually have 4. Lord Marshal actually has a name. It's Lord Marshal Zylaw.
Zylaw.
Is that with an X or a Z?
Zhylaw. Go figure. All right, so the last 2 nuggets are really great. Colm Feore played the King of the Frost Giants in Thor.
Okay, sweet.
Oh, right.
Which I never knew, and I was like, wow, okay, perfect.
Is that in Thor: The Dark World, the greatest movie of all time, or is that in the first Thor?
Nope, it was in Thor, the one that people actually like.
Whatever. Thor: The Dark World is a legendary film.
Yeah, legendarily crappy.
Yeah, fair enough.
Dark elves. Come on. Anyway, okay, last
And as I recall, the CGI character kind of looks like him, doesn't it?
It probably does. I don't remember it because I haven't seen Thor since it came out.
Like Hulk carries a resemblance to
The Ruffalino.
Yeah, Mark Ruffalo, if I recall, now that I think about it.
I believe you are correct, Jarhigo.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, my final nugget.
So this is 4 nuggets now, though.
Yeah, sorry. My final nugget, which you guys are going to absolutely love this nugget.
I love it. I thought it's supposed to be my segment, but okay.
No, nuggets is everybody's segment.
As of this show, where I've got 4 of them.
It used to be. No, dude, as of last week.
Oh, God.
Nugget number 4. Don't be mad.
Nugget number 4. The pilot on Toombs' ship when he gets the 5-man crew. Do you know who it is?
Oh, yes. I love it.
Do you know who it is?
Yep, it's Praxidite Meng.
That's right. It's Terry Chen who played Prax.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I was super pumped when I saw that.
And I love that. And when I looked that up, I was like, I looked at him and I was like, that guy looks familiar. And I looked it up and I was like, Terry Chen.
I said the same thing. And because I've been drowning in the goddamn expanse, I picked up on it pretty quickly.
Exactly. And I had never thought of it before. Obviously, I had no reason to.
No, that's a great nugget.
Those are my nuggets.
I like it.
Yeah. What do you got, Chad? You got anything else? You got anything nug-wise?
Yeah, I got a couple. Just riffing off of Benny's passing comment earlier, in between takes, evidently, Vin Diesel passed the time by playing D&D with Carl Urban, Judi Dench, and Thandie Newton.
I love that so much.
That would have been an awesome D&D game.
I wonder who was the DM.
I don't know.
Diesel, dude.
Must have been Vin, yeah.
Yeah. Imagine how hilarious it would have been to play D&D with Judi Dench and Carl Urban in the same game. It would have been fucking incredible.
Oh my God, man.
Not to mention Thandie Newton, but still, like, that would have been epic.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah. And then, the Linus Roche nugget that I had, which will give us a chance to briefly talk about him, is his death scene, the Purifier death scene, and the speech evidently was a nod to Roy Batty's death, and the speech he gave to Deckard about the things that he saw that Deckard wouldn't believe. I think nod's a bit generous, but I definitely think that there was definitely a bit of a homage there. You know, he gives a bit of a speech and says, like, yeah, actually, like, we're not all that different, and then just walks out and dies. So it has its similarities.
Interesting.
Yeah, he's got that super, he's got a similar hair color and hairstyle to Roy Batty as well.
Yeah, totally.
He does. You're right.
No, I think the Purifier was a cool character.
You know, I didn't say this the bulk of the episode, but I'll say it now. This is a very comic booky feeling movie, the way it was shot, for sure. And Riddick is very much a superhero, and his powers would be fighting and night vision.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the first time I thought of it, and it's probably because we do so much superhero stuff. Like, yeah, I don't know, just throwing that out there.
No, for sure.
So what are we rating this movie?
You guys go.
You want me to go first, Ben?
Sure.
Or do you have did you spin up the old improbability drive?
You know, I almost feel like that just doesn't work for this one. I did spin it up, but I still nothing has occurred to me that's worthwhile. That's like no artifact from the movie is worth dredging up for this.
Fair enough. I'm going to give this movie 9.3.
Nice.
It's just, there's really nothing I don't like about it. I think I've said it in the very beginning. World building, script, dialogue. I mean, there's stuff I didn't even talk about that I think is great. Like the dialogue. Some of the dialogue is so great. It feels like it should be cliche, but it's not because it's original and it's great. And the actors are committed and the cast is fantastic. Production values are great. It's a passion from Chloe and Diesel and really everybody that participated. It deserves it. 9.3. This is a great film. I love it.
Nice one. Close out your rating, Benny.
I'm with you, Kev. I'm going to give this one a solid 9.
Yeah, there you go.
It's for me, it's classic. I've given it a lot of compliments, but I really think all the participants really gave this one a huge effort, and it shows. And, the fact that it was there, keeping the home fires burning for the sci-fi people, I love it. And we have a lot of history with it. And I don't have one, but I wish I could raise a glass of Lord Vakko's Necromonger Red and take a hearty pull.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, man.
Maybe that's the improbability drive. It's 9 out of 10 glasses of Lord Vakko's Necromonger Red.
Ooh.
Yes.
There, Chad just dialed it in, man. I like it.
Yes. There we go. I was thinking the same thing that it just kind of occurred to me then. Yes, it's 9 chalices.
Ooh, chalices.
9 chalices of Lord Vakko's Red.
I love it.
Would it be a chalice or a goblet, Ben?
Ooh, maybe it's 9 teacups.
Ooh.
Of Lord Vakko's
Well done.
Necromonger Red.
Well done.
I love it.
All right.
So I think I'm hoping that what I'm about to say is not going to be not at all funny in 2 weeks when the world melts to the fucking ground, but similar to how Australia is like 10 days behind America with this corona shit show, I feel like I'm, 50 to 60 viewings behind you guys with this, so I'm only really just starting to come around to it.
Mm-hmm.
That said, it went from a meh for 3-4 months ago to a good movie, so I think it's solidly in the good movie category for me. And kind of where it's currently sitting, and it's probably going to keep climbing as I watch it over the years. Is it's sitting very much in the Commando GOG kind of level, so it's damn good. It doesn't really sneak into the really good or great for me yet, but I'm sure it'll get there someday. But it's a 5.3. And it's, as I said, slightly better than GOG and slightly less than Commando. So I think it's great company that it's in.
Wow. Okay. I'm not surprised. I'm actually glad to hear that. I was expecting something lower, but I'm glad that your rating is as high as it is.
I was expecting high 4s.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was expecting too. And I'm glad that you I always love on the show when one of our minds is changed either way about a particular piece of content or a property, and I like that you've warmed up to this franchise because I think it's really fantastic.
No, I definitely, I don't know. They kind of say like you're the average of the people you spend the most time with, and I think that like your guys' approach to appreciating a movie for what it is starting to really rub off on the way I view films. It definitely still makes it complicated to rate everything in one giant algorithm, but similar to your music album vibe where sometimes you need to listen to it a bunch of times, it's definitely the case for this one for me. And
no doubt.
I'm glad that I was able to circle up to enjoying it and appreciating it for what it is. Because like you were saying, Benny, you're kind of in a space where you want to find something new rather than revisit old shit. And like, in a way, the Chronicles of Riddick universe is kind of one of the freshest ideas out there that never really got delved into too far.
That is exactly how I feel, yes.
They've mined the fucking depths of all these other giant universes and ruined some of them and did decent jobs with others, and this one hasn't been mined yet. And who knows if they ever will, but hopefully, like you were saying, that show will come to fruition and the movie will be good. The Furya one, so I'm looking forward to it.
All I know is if they make a Mercs TV show, they better fucking have Toombs.
Dude, if they don't have Toombs in a Merc show, I'm gonna burn this whole fucking place to the ground. And when I say this whole place, I mean the entirety of America. I will burn it to the ground.
I don't know if you're gonna need to bother. It's gonna be already burned to the ground.
You may be well right about that.
Well, on happier notes, it better be played by Nick Chinlund too.
Hell yeah.
Agree. It's got to, man. It's got to have Toombs. Got to have Nick. All right. Well, there you have it, folks. We hope you enjoyed our journey into really the Riddick universe. We're going to be coming back here because we're going to talk about the other films. We wanted to kind of start with this one, but we will definitely be doing more. So tune in the future for those. And, as always, thanks so much for joining us on the journey. We love having you all out there, and we really appreciate it. And we're dedicated to pumping out new content in these uncertain times. I know things are a little hairy around the world. I was talking to another actor friend of mine the other day. There's not a lot of films getting made, not a lot of TV shows getting made. So stuff like this can be done, and it will be done, and we will be doing as much as we can to give everybody something to listen to. So
take your mind off of stuff.
Yeah, it's exactly. Take your mind off this stuff. So thanks so much for joining us, and stay tuned for more. We'll keep pumping out the content. And everybody, please stay safe.
You want to do a what do we got next week?
Oh, God, yes. My favorite part of the show is when I ask Algorithm what's coming up. Something very exciting. Maybe Jarhigo should announce it because it's his favorite.
Yeah, the big episode 50, Heegs.
I'm actually scared.
Yeah?
Whenever I'm this close to something, it just does not, I can't do it justice. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to do this one justice, but we're going to be doing Big Trouble in Little China.
Yes!
And it is definitely one of my favorite movies.
It is indeed.
I can't wait to talk about it, and I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say.
I haven't seen this one in years.
I haven't seen it in a while either, so I'm stoked.
It's one of those comfort food movies for me, so I've seen it a ridiculous amount of times, but I'll be watching it again.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's it. So tune in for next week, folks, when we do Big Trouble in Little China. And as always, see you on another time.
I was always with you.
Later?
Later?
Oh, my God.
What was that? I was always with you thing.
Isn't that fucking Kira's last line? You said, are you with me, Kira? Are you with me, Kira?
Oh, Jesus.
Oh,
come
dude,
on, man.
How could I miss that?
Yeah.
Ben, we're losers.
Late deaths, everybody.
I knew that, but I didn't need to feel it so certainly.
We're not with it, man.
It's okay.
All right.
The lack of reaction was kind of better than if you guys got it.
Was that a death? It was a death.
Can one die so late in the show?
Uh-huh.
And that's going to be it for this week's episode, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Next week, we're going to be doing Big Trouble in Little China, so please join us for that. You can find the show notes for this episode in your podcast app of choice, or our website, ebd.fm/episodes/49. You can ask us questions using the Twitter hashtag AskEBD. You can find me at Mulverine on Twitter. Chad is at ChadNormal on Twitter. And Ben is at Jarhigo on Twitter. As always, I want to take a second and thank everybody so much for tuning into the show. It really means a lot to me and the boys. There's a lot of great ways that you can support the show, but the best is word of mouth. Talking about the show is incredibly powerful and incredibly effective, so we encourage everybody to do so. Thanks so much for tuning in. Everybody, please stay safe, and we will see you next time.